But the reality essentially being that the people of Assam are now supporting the action of the government of Assam. In fact, what we saw today, earlier in the day, was heartwarming images coming in from Gwalpara, where people of Assam's Gwalpara were voluntarily demolishing a madrasa and a residence adjacent to it, which was previously used by two suspected Bangladeshi nationals. What has essentially happened is that in the last few weeks itself, the Assam police has upped the ante, ensuring that the radicalization that was being carried out by the ABT is nipped the bud. Take a look at this report, and also then an exclusive interview with the special DGP of Assam talking about the radicalization attempt that was made by the ABT.
Amid strong resentment towards jihadi activities in Assam, local residents in Gwalpara town on Tuesday demolished a madrasa and a house adjacent to it. It is alleged that the jihadi Jalaluddin Sheikh engaged with both the absconding Bangladeshi nationals Aminul Islam and Jahangir Alam, who worked as teachers in the said madrasa at different times between 2021 and 2022. They were allegedly associated with the Al-Qaeda Indian subcontinent and Ansarullah Bangla team.
A madrasa has been demolished in Darogar Alga in Pakuria Sor area of Gwalpara district. But this time it was not the administration, neither it was the police. It was the local population of that area who came to the madrasa and demolished it, along with a house in which some accused linked to the AQYS and ABT were taking shelter. Remember, a few days back, Jalaluddin Sheikh was arrested from Gwalpara. Enraged by the incident, people came to the madrasa today morning, and without the support of district administration and police, they demolished the madrasa along with the house in which Jalaluddin Sheikh and others were taking shelter. It may be mentioned that Assam police have been taking initiative in regards to de-radicalization and indoctrination of the youths, particularly in the served areas of the state.
Earlier, the administration bulldozed madrasas in Moirabari in Morigaon district on August 4th, in Barpeta on August 29th, and in Joginghopa in Bogaigaon on August 31st.
Primary reason was that from that madrasa, no academic activity was primarily running. That madrasa was used for training of Al-Qaeda, training camp of Al-Qaeda. Apart from that, the madrasa was constructed unauthorizedly. So in the morning, we have evicted that madrasa. This is the second madrasa we have evicted because of the fact that those institutions were not running at madrasa but as a terrorist hub.
The action came after the Assam team recovered incriminating documents, including a booklet about Ansarullah Bangla team and a logo belonging to Al-Qaeda Indian subcontinent from the Markjul Ma'arif Quirana Madrasa in Bogaigaon.
We want to bring about certain bit of a system wherein the madrasas function as per rules and procedures, and these rules will be enforced by respective boards. They have a Tanzim Council, they have a Ali Hadith group, there's an Ali Sunnat group, also an Adwa group. Each group would be administering the set of rules that will be now put in place in their respective madrasas, and they will be responsible to put it up in a portal that will be introduced.
More than 40 people with suspected link to jihadi elements, including Bangladeshi nationals, have been arrested in the state since March this year. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Joining us right now is the Special DGP of Assam Police, Mr. G.P. Singh. Mr. Singh, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. Let me straight away delve into the action that has been taken by the Assam Police. So far, we were given to understand that there are clear terror links that are basically emerging, and that is the reason why the Assam Police and the Assam government feels the need to carry out this sort of a crackdown. Could you explain it to our viewers, the need for this kind of a crackdown?
Last year in the month of May, after the present Chief Minister Hemant Biswa Sharma ji took over, he had a clear message that all kinds of terror activities in the state have to be brought to a halt. And that was a time when we had also started getting signals that there is some radicalization going on in Muslim-dominated areas in Assam. We carried out an intensive assessment in those areas. We started analyzing the electronic footprints along with our sister agencies. And in the month of February, we got to know about the first module in Barpeta. And since then, we have not looked back. We have arrested 40 cadres, and we have registered 7 criminal cases against various people aligned to Ansarul Bangla team, which is an offshoot organization of Al-Qaeda. Of these cases, one case has been handed over to National Investigation Agency for investigation, and they have already charge-sheeted the case. We are keeping a watch over this entire spectrum of 8-9 districts in Assam, where the Islamic population is roughly in the range of 40 to 50%, because these are the areas that are prone to indoctrination and moving towards fundamentalism. One more thing that is important is that during this period, we have also seen that whole lot of people who are coming on tourist visas to Assam from Bangladesh, and they have a history of being preachers in their country. These people have been coming and addressing various kinds of takreers and dars in Assam. So after making an assessment of their previous speeches and what they have been doing, we have, with the help of central agencies, moved for cancellation of visa. 10 such visas have been cancelled during the last 6 months. So it's an all-out effort to ensure that no radicalization takes place in the state, and we are able to nip the entire problem in the bud.
Mr. Singh, to understand the presence of AQIS in the state of Assam, I want you to tell our viewers with regards to their activities that you've witnessed over the last few months particularly, and would it be a fair assessment to say that the ABT perhaps wanted to create a base in Assam so that they could carry out their activities, their nefarious activities in eastern India? What's your assessment like as far as ABT's intentions are concerned?
Our assessment in course of investigation has revealed that initially they were in the process of identifying people around whom they could create nucleus which would have formed Ansar. Ansar is a module or a sleeper cell through which they would ask the local people to associate with this Ansar and then increase the pace of radicalization in that general area. And subsequent to that is physical training, and after that they go into the phase of preparing the people for jihad, that is planning to have people who are willing to go in as mujahids and preparing what is called as askari cells so that they can indulge in violent activities. But we have at this stage restricted this entire activity at the first phase of radicalization itself. And the way it has been all connected, it indicates that they were planning to have a pan-India kind of a connect, with some modules having been located in Bhopal, others in other parts of Northeast, especially Tripura. We have had some footprint. Now we are analyzing the electronic footprint of all these organizations to see what is the actual spread. All the central agencies are working with us, and they have been extremely cooperative in this venture that we have undertaken. And I am hopeful that before they reach the stage of radicalization to the extent where they could indulge in violent activities, we would be able to stop this menace.
One final question, Mr. Singh, before I let you go, is with regards to some heartwarming images that came into our newsroom earlier in the day with the locals now joining hand. We are essentially looking at images of locals destroying certain madrasas primarily because they suspected some jihadi activities were going on, which goes on to show that, or at least reflect, that on the ground, your police, the government in Assam, is receiving good amount of support. How do you essentially look at that? There are a couple of things that I would like to bring to notice of the viewers. One is that we have actively engaged with the Islamic community in our state. We have had extensive meetings with
leadership organizations of madrasas, and they have also promised that they would have a internal look at the activities of registered and unregistered madrasas. In addition, they have also said that they would cooperate in the venture that we have undertaken of capturing the data of all the madrasas about the teachers who are there and those who are coming from outside. We intend to have linkages of all the madrasa teachers with some kind of a permanent identity. This would be a web portal on which they would themselves enter the data. One of the stakeholders would be there are 4 major madrasa councils. They would be stakeholders in that. Then administration and police would be associated with it. Whatever data that is given by each of the madrasa, that would be off and on verified by our agencies in coordination with the madrasa councils. We are not going to do it by ourselves. We would ask them to associate with us so that we have their full support. Next is that they have themselves said that wherever they come to know about any such activity which is anti-India, they would inform the police. This extensive interaction has been going on for the last about month or so. And it was really heartwarming this morning when I was informed by the local superintendent of police of Gwalpara that some people have taken this pledge that they would dismantle this madrasa by themselves, because this was the place from where one of the persons has been arrested. And during investigation, it came out that 2 Bangladesh nationals had stayed there for the purpose of indoctrination and spreading fundamentalism and radicalization in that area.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. G.P. Singh, for speaking to Republic TV. It's always a pleasure to have you on This Is Exclusive. Wishing you all the very best to you and your team as you carry on with your war on radicalization. Well, now shifting focus now to the big story coming in this evening of the crackdown by the Enforcement Directorate in the liquor gate. Searches were basically being carried out at 35 plus locations spread across 5 states. All this while, we did not know as to whose places were being raided. Republic TV has now accessed the full list of people who have been raided by the Enforcement Directorate. We are now getting the full list of those premises that have now come under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate. Let me just quickly read out the names that we have of those who have been raided by the Enforcement Directorate. Starting with Dinesh Arora, then Amit Arora, Vijay Nair in Mumbai, Raju Chadda. Now he's linked to Ponti Chadda is what I'm given to understand. He is being raided. Prabjot is the other person whose premises are being raided by the Enforcement Directorate. In fact, there are 2 places in Punjab. I'm being told that the Joint Commissioner and Commissioner of Excise Department, their premises are being raided by the Enforcement Directorate. Karamjit Singh Lamba. I'll just request our producers to put out the full list. Let's just stay with the list that we have accessed, the names that we know of those who are now under the scanner of the Enforcement Directorate, those premises that have essentially been raided by the Enforcement Directorate is what we know. 35 plus locations are being searched for people who directly or indirectly have benefited from tweaking of the excise policy. Persons whose premises are being searched include those who could have received parts of the proceeds of crime. Part of the investigation is limited to the private individuals who conspired with public servants. Let's try and go across to Piyush Mishra, who's been tracking this story very closely. I'll try and go across to Piyush Mishra, who's been getting us all the details also. In fact, Piyush was earlier in the day at Samir Mahindru's residence. Samir Mahindru, his residence has also been raided. So we are giving you the list apart from those whom we have already reported earlier in the day. Samir Mahindru was his residence was raided earlier in the day, even Sadi Marwa. But what's important to point out is the entire list that has now been accessed by Republic TV. I'll bring in my colleague Piyush Mishra in a short while from now, viewers. But the full list that we have: Dinesh Arora, Amit Arora, Vijay Nair, Raju Chadda linked to Ponti Chadda, Prabjot, and 2 places in Punjab, Joint Commissioner and Commissioner of Excise Department, and Karamjit Singh Lamba. Their locations. Their locations or their premises have now been searched by the Enforcement Directorate. ED raids are still continuing is what we are being told. In fact, I'll try and bring in my colleague Piyush who's going to take us through some of the details that we are getting in right now. 35 plus locations are being searched of people who are directly or indirectly benefited from tweaking the excise policy. So it's important to point out here is that the CBI, which had first registered the FIR, that same FIR has been taken as the predicate offence for the Enforcement Directorate, and ECIR has already been registered by the Enforcement Directorate. And immediately after filing the ECIR, the FIR equivalent, we are now being told after that was done, the searches were being carried out. Over 10 teams of the Enforcement Directorate carried out the searches starting around 7 o'clock this morning. Slipping into a short break. On the other side, we'll get you more details, the latest updates as far as Liquorgate is concerned.
Is there a political alternative to take on Prime Minister Modi? Can the opposition cobble up a united front? Who will be the face of the opposition for 2024? Or not debates at 9 p.m.